Hello, I'm Dr. Tanya Dvorak with the Department of Biosystems and Agricultural Engineering, representing the NSF EPSCoR 2 R2 grant project. Today's activity for E-Day is entitled Engineering Homemade Paper Cards in Fun Shapes from Recycled Paper. So this project and activity today is going to be a fun hands-on activity that you can do with your family. So grab your siblings and your parents or an adult to help you out. An adult will be needed because we will be using a blender, and with the sharp blades, it's necessary for an adult to assist with that. I really wish we could be with you in person this year for E-Day. However, this activity will allow you to make something at home that can be unique to the materials that you have. So perhaps some of you like to do crafts at home, art projects like my children. We go through lots of construction paper and white paper from the printer to make different drawings and crafts. So one of the first supplies that you will need for this activity is some scrap paper. So you can use newspapers that your parents are finished with, or you can get some scraps of artwork. Some of this is from the school activities that my child has done. So I grabbed it to use for this activity. So what I did once grabbing some of that scrap paper, again, it can be white paper, it can be newspaper that you're finished with, or it can be some of this construction type paper like I'm using today. I also have some scraps from some scrapbooking paper that I used for making some Valentines. So I've got them all kind of torn up here in this bowl. I don't know, it's maybe roughly a cup or slightly more than that of paper in just a little bowl here. And it's roughly this, each piece is roughly the size of a nickel. Also for this activity, you will need a cup. It can be a glass, it can be a measuring cup with some water in it. Next, we will need some cookie cutters. So I love butterflies. I have this nice butterfly cookie cutter. And in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I grabbed a couple of small hearts that we have here at home. And then of course, a blender. So whatever blender you have at home that's electric, even handheld electric blenders can also work. I don't have one of those, so I'm not going to use that specific type of instructions today, but that is possible to utilize. Next, we need, because we never want to put our hands inside of a blender and get our fingers sliced. We have, you'll need a wooden spoon or spatula type utensil or a plastic one. We'll need a piece of parchment paper or just some plastic wrap to use for this activity down the line. So you can go ahead and get that out in handy. Next, we have a couple of towels that we'll need to squeeze out the water as we make our homemade paper. And a dish with a flattened bottom. So I just grabbed my favorite brownie pan, something with a flat bottom. It could be a large bowl that you have that's flat on the bottom. It could be a cookie tray. Whatever you have that has a flat bottom will work. As you know, we use paper for lots of things. So my scrap paper here from school craft projects and writing assignments that they do at school. We use paper for drawing. We use papers for writing notes and giving cards to individuals, our family members, our loved ones, our friends. And so today we're going to make some brand new paper out of scrap paper. So we're recycling paper to make something new, which is great to do. It's great to utilize our resources and make them reusable. So one thing about paper, it is made of lignin, and lignin comes from trees. So, and of course our paper comes from trees, right? So lignin is in trees and in plants, in the stem parts of the plants. And here is a picture of lignin that is located in the stem of a plant. So the project I work with here at UK is titled Assembling Successful Structures, Lignin Beads for Sustainability of Food, Energy, and Water Systems. So we're looking at ways to utilize lignin. So we have been having our engineer and chemistry researchers in the labs working on ways to utilize the polymers inside lignin. So some of the very intricate pieces of lignin to see how it can help us in society. So lots of exploratory research to see how we can utilize that. All right, now let's get back to our fun activity and grab your paper. Go ahead and tear it into pieces and place it into your bowl. Once you have that bowl of paper ready, we're ready to go to the next step. All right, now we're ready to place our scraps of paper into the blender. So my blender is basically, I'd say about a third of the way full. I'm going to put 1 cup of water into it and see if it covers all of the paper. Since it doesn't cover all the paper, I'm going to add some more water. So just make sure you put enough water in your blender to cover all of your scrap pieces of paper. There we go. And so our paper is getting absorbed into the water, and that's what we want. All right, next, as always, we always put the lid on our blender before we turn it on. So I'm going to put my lid on my blender, and let's turn it on high speed for just about 30 seconds. Let's see how well it gets things chopped up. All right, well, it looks like a paper smoothie in my blender. The other way to test to see if your blender is finished is to see if it has a bit of a oatmeal looking consistency. So if it looks a little thin and refined like oatmeal, once it's been soaked in water for a little while, then it should be done. All right, our paper is done in the blender, and the next thing to do is to grab your flat bottomed pan or bowl or dish and a piece of parchment paper or plastic wrap. I'm going to try out the parchment paper this time. So go ahead and grab what you need and make sure you cut it out or tear it out to match the size of your dish. So I'm going to place this along the bottom of my dish. It's okay if it doesn't fit perfectly because we want to have a little bit of the size of the paper or plastic around the edges so that way we can easily turn our paper that we're making later once we get some of the water drained out. All right, now I'm going to grab my blender. You can grab your blender with me, and let's pour out some, if not all of the mulch into our dish that we used previously. It looks nice and runny and thick. I just poured mine with the lid on, so that way I don't stick my hands inside the blender right now. And this is a lot of paper blends already, so I think that's plenty anyway. I don't need to get all the last little scraps out. But definitely, after a while, we'll want to rinse all of the rest of this paper out and not let it dry in our blender. All right, so I have my water and my paper in my bowl. And before I get into that with my hands, we're going to get all messy with that. I'm going to take my cookie cutter and I'm going to place it in my flat bottomed dish or bowl or pan. So we're just going to put it in there, and then we're going to use that in just a minute. So we want to keep it in there, have it still and ready to use. The next thing we want to do is take our bowl and we want to start trying to squeeze out a little bit of the water. So my blender is very high powered, and so it really did get it all very, very, very finely chopped. And it's okay if yours didn't get so finely chopped. So even draining this a little bit with my hands is a little challenging because it's just very, very, very thin with lots and lots of water. So go ahead and squeeze it out gently. Don't worry about getting all of the water out, but go ahead and squeeze it out gently and then start placing the squeezed out paper into your cookie cutter mold. We do not want to pour all of the water and the paper from our bowl into our mold and other dish because it will be too saturated to get all of the water absorbed. So if we continue to take our hands and squeeze out gently some of the water at least and put it inside of our cookie cutter, then we can go from there. So have fun doing that. I'll see you in a second. It is also possible, if your paper has gotten so very fine, to use a colander with small holes to drain some of that water out of your bowl. So I have this very nifty little bitty strainer to strain water out of cans. And so I just decided I would grab it and try it out. It has very small holes. So if you have a colander with small holes, that could be something else that you could try. So if you want to make more than one card out of a shape, out of a cookie cutter shape, then you can add additional scraps of the paper inside your blender, along with appropriate amounts of water to make those work for you in order to make 2 cards. I used just a little bit of paper, so it's basically enough for just one large card made in my butterfly shape. Once you have strained a large amount of the water out of your shredded up paper from the blender that was in our bowl, and you have it inside of your shape, inside of your cookie cutter shape, smooth it out all along the cookie cutter shape so that it's evenly distributed at the bottom. I will try and hold mine up. Because I used a great deal of orange paper and also some yellow paper and just a little bit of blue and a little tiny bit of pink paper, my paper, which you may not be able to see the color very well with my lighting in my kitchen, looks pretty orange, orangish brown. It's always a mystery to see, an experiment to find out what color your paper will end up once it's been blended into the blender. If you mix different colors, you could use newspaper and it would basically be all roughly grayish color, a gray color. Or if you use different colors of scrap paper, it will blend all together and you will find out what color it will turn into. Okay, so now I'm going to take one of my dish towels and make sure it's okay, whichever one you choose from your drawer is okay with your parents to use, so that way you don't ruin someone's white dish towel with your colored water that you're squeezing out of your cards that we're making. So I did choose dark black just to make sure nothing would happen with making my towels turn colors. What you're going to do is gently press the towel along the top of your cookie cutter to squeeze out some of that water. So I am squeezing and pressing down, trying to absorb that water into my dish towel. Pretty good on that side. I'm going to do the other side. You may need more than one towel depending on how much water is still in your paper that you're making, or depending on how thick your towels are. So we want to keep our cookie cutter still. We don't want it to slide around because we might ruin our nice paper that we're making. So keep doing this until you get all of the water into the towel where you feel no more water squeezing out of your paper mixture in your cookie cutter. It can definitely take a while to squeeze the water out manually with our hands and the towels. So this will take a few minutes to do. But once you feel like it's at a good place, then it's ready to just let it dry on its own. It could take roughly 24 hours or a little bit longer. I have used my towel and I have gotten as much water as I feel like I could get out of my cookie cutter shape with my paper that is in process here. So I feel good about it. And I have smoothed out the bottom to make it as flat as possible in the cookie cutter shape. We're going to remove the cookie cutter from the paper. So our paper is going to still be obviously wet and a little sticky perhaps. Not sticky as in gooey sticky, but sticky to the cookie cutter. So we want to gently push the paper that we have inside the cookie cutters down while we lift up our cookie cutter. So I'll do my best to capture that with the video. All right, so I'm pushing the paper down gently. And it's in, keep it into the one shape with my beautiful butterfly here. Pushing it down onto my flat bottom dish or my pan here. You want to do this slowly. And there we go. Can you see my butterfly? So now I am ready for my beautiful butterfly paper to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another dish towel and I'm going to lay it flat on a surface that will not be bothered overnight. So I will have to warn my family to leave it alone, right? So tell whoever does the dishes, please don't mess with my paper, let it dry, right? So I have my fresh dry towel on my kitchen counter, and for you, it may need to be somewhere else, wherever it's out of the way. And I'm going to gently pull up the parchment paper that I utilized in the bottom of my pan or in your flat surface dish or bowl. I'm going to gently put my hand on top of the paper as I flip it over onto the new towel. There we go. So I basically just kind of caught it in my hand and then turned it over and then removed my hand onto the towel. Worked pretty good. So I hope yours did too. So I have my cookie cutter shape paper that we just made on a kitchen towel here to dry. So our homemade fun shaped paper is something that you can give to someone as a gift. So since E-Day happens after Valentine's Day, you could give it as a late Valentine's Day card, or you could give it as a birthday card, or you could save it and give it to your parents or grandparents on Mother's Day. One other thing you could do with these paper cards is to utilize them as grow cards. So if you have any flower seeds, you can place them while your paper shape is wet and press them into the top of it. These little paper cards can also be called grow cards, where someone would actually bury your dried, where you could give it to someone and they could bury the dried paper card with some flower seeds on it into their flower pot or garden or wherever they would like. And it will eventually grow flowers from those flower seeds. And it makes for a lasting gift, right? So not only something fun to see, but also something to plant and to grow and make people happy later. All right, well, here we are, more than 24 hours later. As you can see, the sun has gone down, so it's obviously a little bit more than 24 hours than when I recorded the activity at the beginning. So I have very well dried out paper butterfly now. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. So my lighting is not that great with it being dark outside. So I have this really great butterfly paper card that I made. It's a little thick, so it took a little bit, maybe more than 24 hours, just slightly more than 24 hours to dry. Yours may be thinner, and that is perfectly fine. You can make these as thin as you would like. I really didn't know exactly how thick it would be when it turned out, but I really like the thickness of this, so that way I know it is sturdy. So just wanted to show you all the way around it. So the back side is going to be a little bit more smooth since it was on our parchment paper or your plastic as the backing when you were squeezing out the water. And the top of mine is a little bumpy from where I had my fingers pressing the towel to squeeze out the water. So like I said, depending on how much water you squeezed out, it may take less than 24 hours or it may take slightly more than 24 hours to completely dry into some really fun paper. If you have flower seeds that you would like to use that perhaps are left over from last summer or last fall, or if you have some that you purchased, you can also use them into your cards. You can press them into your cards. This is a butterfly paper that my daughter made later yesterday. And she used some blue scraps of paper along with other colors. And you can maybe see here, maybe not see the blue, but she added some flower seeds to the top of her paper before it dried. So after she finished draining or pressing the water out of the paper into the cookie cutter, like we did with the towel, once she was ready for it to sit and dry, she went ahead and pressed in some flower seeds. So this is a type of paper card that you can not only give, but you can also give it to someone and they can put it in their garden or somewhere that they want to plant and have some flowers grow, and just plant it as you would any other types of flower seeds, and it'll eventually grow once it's been watered. So that's a fun additional activity or a fun addition to your paper that you can do if you would like to at this time or later on in the future. So these paper cards are really fun to do and to make. They're cheap, just uses your recycled paper and uses equipment that you already have at home. So I hope you enjoy making some new paper cards out of paper that you are tossing out anyway. And this is a great fun, like I said previously, birthday card type activity that you can make that comes from the heart and from the hands. So to add on to these cards, simply write a note, we can decorate it, however you would like to add your own flair to it is great. So what you can do is add on to these paper cards that you made, and you can use a permanent marker, or you may use a water marker like a Crayola brand school marker. And I'm going to write a message. I'm going to go ahead and use this as a Mother's Day card that I'm going to go ahead and write on here, Happy Mother's Day, for someone. So you can see I wrote Happy Mother's Day and put a little heart. You can also add details to the front to decorate your paper card a little bit. So I'm just putting a little bit of an outline on mine. So depending on what kind of cookie cutter shape you used, you can decorate it however you would like, and you can be creative as you would like. So I'm going to put 2 little eyeballs on here, even though it's not necessarily where the eyeballs are on butterflies. So just for fun. So be creative and make it what you want it to be. You can add your name on there as well, along with the message that you might want to write to someone. So there I have my card. I've written on one side, maybe backwards for you all. Have added a little bit of decoration. So feel free to be creative and to make your paper look as fancy and decorative as you'd like. Also, I wanted to mention, if you don't have any cookie cutters at home or wherever you are that you're making this activity, you can also press the paper before you strain the water out into just a rectangle or a square. So you don't have to have a cookie cutter. You can always make a flattened square or rectangle piece of paper and make it however you would like. So be creative and have fun. And I hope you enjoyed engineering paper from recyclable paper, things that you have at home. So I hope you enjoy this project with your family and friends.